Right now, people are calling me. Instead of 2, I'll take 3. That's what I'm getting. People are happy to see it. And I love finding somebody else who's interested. It just feels good.
The one great thing I think about Zatoun, I think it's its greatest achievement, is that it has engaged people in a process that just wasn't available to them before, where they felt helpless, they felt they just didn't know where to start.
Zatoun, a life story in 4 parts. This is the 3rd, Palestine in a Bottle. Assalamu alaikum, shalom aleichem, peace be with you. I'm Michael Riordon. Zatoun is the Arabic word for olive. It is also a Canadian grassroots initiative to bring fair trade organic olive oil from farmer cooperatives in Palestine to North America. Robert Massoud launched the project in 2003. He calls Zatoun Palestine in a Bottle.
It symbolizes the land, because that's what the tree is. I mean, the tree is people's attachment to the land. It's what unites the Palestinian people to the land they live in, because it's the intermediary in a way. It's what gives them life. And that the tree is so ubiquitous. It is everywhere. And then secondly, in the hardships of cultivating and harvesting and making this olive oil is the occupation, is the limits to their livelihood, the injustices that they suffer. So it represents that as well. And then thirdly, it represents an embodiment of our desire to support Palestine, to bring peace, to bring social justice. This is a way for us to feel that we are doing something on the ground that is really benefiting individuals. So it's real grassroots humanity being involved. It really is an embodiment of the whole question. And I think when I phrase it as Zatoun is Palestine in a Bottle, people get it. They see it, they taste it, they can participate in it. And that's the real strength of it.
The people who get it include a vast network of volunteers who sell the oil, bottle by bottle, across Canada and the United States. None of them is paid. One such person is Miriam Garfinkel, a medical doctor in Toronto who is also on the board of Zatoun. When weather permits, Miriam delivers Zatoun on her bicycle.
It just captured me, like as an idea to do something really concrete. And then I found out I was pretty good at selling it. I sell it to a lot of my colleagues. I started selling it everywhere. I just take bottles with me everywhere. I still do. Like, I just carry them around. Yeah, I think I should have been a saleswoman.
In addition to volunteering with the Palestinian Child Sponsorship Program and serving on the Zatoun board, Carole Charlebois is the primary outlet for the olive oil in Montreal, Quebec, handling about 1/5 of all the Zatoun sold across Canada.
There's often activities, conferences, or cultural events, like a group of Palestinian singers will come into town, and so they'll give me a booth. People that I've gotten to know over the years who want to sell it also, I'll supply them with it. Robert will send me leads and contacts through the website. And then people call me up who've been referred by somebody. We're starting to develop a relationship with a solidarity group in Vanier College, the CEGEP. Universities, fair trade. I do several fair trade shows in autumn. The YMCA is one of them. And that's the way it's sold. It's worked quite well, and it's the same thing at this end in Quebec. When we sell the oil or we send it out, we have what we call friendly depots, or I've met people at events and didn't have any cash, didn't have a checkbook on them, and I sent a few bottles with them, and they would go and report in and pay by PayPal or send in checks. I don't think we've ever been stiffed.
Tell the driver of time to take me from forbidden, drop me in equality, and I'll walk alone to peace. Don't tell me they are not on the same track. There is a place called peace, and its capital is equality. From Driver of Fate by the Palestinian rap group Dam.
وصلني لمحل مش معروف باسم الوحدة العربية وصلني للحرية اللي تكون مهدية من غير قتال اللي عشانها كلنا هون ضحية وصلني للمستقبل وللسرعة في الوصول.
Zatoun provides farmers in the West Bank with an essential market for their organic olive oil. It supports the planting of olive saplings to replace the millions of trees destroyed by the Israeli army and settlers, as well as art and language programs for children forced to grow up in refugee camps. But Zatoun also has a third, less visible function that Robert Massoud considers equally crucial in North America, where it is not easy to find honest information about Palestinians.
It's like being out in the forest in a hurricane and trying to be heard. The din of the media and the hype and all the fear-mongering, it makes it so that you can't be heard. So this is kind of the idea of being voiceless in the wilderness. Yeah, and that's what Zatoun's about. The Zatoun is a certain effort through the olive oil to regain a bit of voice in a very different kind of way. So it's not about media, because we don't have the levers of media at our disposal. The corporate media is not available to us, and neither are the politicians or the large organizations. So this is where the grassroots comes in. This is where the activist network has to kind of kick in with individuals making their choices about where they want to be active and how they want to be active. And the one great thing I think about Zatoun, I think it's its greatest achievement, is that it has engaged people in a process that just wasn't available to them before, where they felt helpless, they felt they just didn't know where to start.
Smadar Carmon grew up on a kibbutz near Tel Aviv. Now living in Toronto, she volunteers with Zatoun and Jewish Women Against Israeli Apartheid. Every Friday as Shabbat begins, they hand out information leaflets on a busy downtown street near the Israeli consulate.
People will shout something, or they'll take the flyer we're putting out and scramble it into a ball and just throw it on the ground as if it's okay to litter because you're angry. Or they'll start calling us murderers. One time somebody spat on someone. But I've also noticed that there's much more support. I think it might be because Israel really revealed its real colors in the war on Lebanon last summer. People now know a little bit more that Israel is not the victim. So there's much more support. People are happy to take the flyers, or they just put their thumb up. Also, you have people that are just curious. They'll come up to you and ask you questions. You can actually have a real conversation, which is nice. To me, it's really about educating. This is how we can somehow put out what the media is so not putting out.
Samir Muqaddam is Program Director of the American Friends Service Committee's Middle East Peace Education Program in Atlanta, Georgia. The Quaker Peace and Social Justice Organization is the primary distributor of Zatoun in the United States. I asked Samir how they bring the oil to people's attention.
Our most important, valuable way for us to do it is when we go out to a community. It could be an event at a mosque, at a synagogue, at a church, at a peace and justice center, where we can make presentations like we usually do. And we make a presentation about the olive oil. And through it, we tell the story of the occupation. We tell the story about the wall, how the wall prevents farmers from harvesting the olives every fall. So we tell that stories. And with that presentation, we include olive oil tasting and sometimes sharing recipes of what can be done with the olive oil. And once people have heard the stories, have tasted it because it's very high quality, usually we get excellent reactions when they taste it as compared to what people buy in regular stores. And they end up contributing to our efforts, and we work on a donation basis, so they get the olive oil through their contributions.
And how do people react to Zatoun?
It's similar reaction to their level of how informed they are on the topic of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Some people are very well informed, and right away they get excited, and they say, we didn't know this existed, but I'm glad you're doing it. Some people are informed generally about the concept of fair trade. So they say, oh, now, we're familiar with other fair trade product. We didn't know fair trade olive oil existed. Some people, we need to explain to them what fair trade means. Some people, we're going to be excited about tasting. They say, oh, what do you have here? And they are curious to taste it. So that's our chance to tell them the story and give them a brochure, get them to support the projects. And very, very few come to us and say there's no such thing as Palestine. Some people don't want to admit that there's an occupation, and so on. But, I could count on one hand in the past 2 years people who have reacted that way. I suspect people who don't like this project don't even approach the table because they know who we are. But again, these people would not approach it whether the olive oil is there or not.
Alla da Luna was everyone's favorite song, and in autumn the valley would be filled with the sound of it, as men, women, boys, and girls shook the trunks and the branches, beat them with their sticks, and climbed to the higher, more difficult branches on ladders, making the green olives fall like pearls onto the red earth. They'd move from tree to tree, picking up handfuls of fruit to fill their baskets and bags, pouring out a flood of tunes which echoed through every part of the broad valley, like the playing of a gentle breeze. From the diary of Jabra Ibrahim Jabra. To reduce costs and encourage awareness, nearly all Zatoun olive oil is sold directly, person to person. But relationships with a few retail outlets have begun to develop, now including 10,000 villages. Miriam Garfinkel.
Well, we do have it in some stores. There's an organic store that's been selling it the longest, maybe 3 years, in Kensington, an organic food store. This guy Potsy, who's been really supportive. And then there's this little store called Fair Trade Clothing Co-op on Bloor, young people that run this little store, which is doing a lot of great things with fair trade, buying fair trade clothing from Central America, mostly, helping a women's co-op there, and they're selling Zatoun. I'm always delivering to them. And there's another organic store now on Bloor that's selling it, and there's Alternative Grounds sells it on Ronsonsvale, which is a fair trade coffee shop. We see it as good because we're out in the world that way. It's good for people to see it.
Hedy Mason sells Zatoun in a sparsely populated rural county in eastern Ontario.
Jules lives in McDonald's Corners, and he has a house and a beautiful garden there. McDonald's Corners is a tiny, tiny village with a highway running right through it. So he, for the last couple of years, has had a little market there called Molly's Market, which he sets up in his garden, and local women who have wonderful organic vegetables come and sell. And he stands behind the counter and does wonderful baking and does the coffee. It's just a great scene. He does that in his garage, so in case it rains, we can go in there. People come and get their globe there, and then they come and get their pie for the weekend and their vegetables. Yeah, it's just a very magical scene there.
So now what did you do?
I set up a little table outside and put out a few bottles and then cut up some nice bread and had a little bowl of olive oil there with garlic chopped up in it and a little salt and pepper so that they could taste it and dip in the bread and taste the oil. And then I had the little pamphlets out too. I just sat there and waited, and I sold 9 bottles that day.
What kind of conversations did you have with people? I mean, what did they say?
People just say, well, they need all the help they can get. I'll buy this. It's great that I have a chance to buy this. And I usually write my email address on the pamphlet, too, so that if they need more, they can email me. There wasn't that much conversation, but, that could come later after they read the pamphlet.
What did people say after tasting it?
Oh, yeah, they loved it. They loved the olive oil. It's good oil, they said that. It's quality oil.
Hedy Mason is also involved in the resistance, led by First Nations people, to a proposed uranium mine on disputed land in the area. Here are the struggles of 2 occupied peoples connect.
Up at the mining site the other day, the Christian Peacemaker team is there. So one of the women has gone to Palestine, and she was telling us about that a little bit. So I asked her, I said, "Are you familiar with Zatoun olive oil?" And she said, "I have a bottle in my cupboard." It's funny, eh? She's from the States. She's American. There was another person sitting there, and she said, "Oh, you should tell so-and-so about that, and she'll put it on the website that she has." That would be fabulous. So these are little possibilities that pop up. Right now, people are calling me. Instead of 2, I'll take 3. That's what I'm getting. People are happy to see it. And I love finding somebody else who's interested. It just feels good.
You've been listening to Zatoun, a life story in 4 parts. This was the third. For the music, thanks to the Palestinian rap group DAM, D-A-M, the Arabian MCs, and Le Trio Jubran. Zatoun, a life story, was produced by Michael Riordon. Next, part 4. This tree is part of us.